Between 2001 and 2018, a disturbing pattern emerged in Chicago. At least 51 women were killed by strangulation in the cases that remained unsolved. Their bodies were often left in the city's neglected corners, desolate alleys choked with garbage, vacant lots overgrown with weeds, abandoned buildings with shattered windows. The method was frequently consistent. The victims shared heartbreaking demographic similarities. The geography is tightly clustered on the south and west sides of Chicago. The Murder Accountability Project, MAP, a nonprofit using sophisticated data analysis on homicide records, flagged this as statistically significant cluster, suggesting of a serial murder. Yet the Chicago Police Department has stated that its review found no forensic evidence linking the cases to a single perpetrator. My name is John Cordray, and I'm a licensed professional counselor with a background in clinical counseling since 2007. When I examined these cases, I saw the same concerning pattern that MAP's analysis identified, a potential psychological fingerprint consistent with an organized predator, or possibly more than one. The police view them as separate tragedies common to high-crime areas. But when you step back and look at the full picture, the repeated methods, the chosen victims, the calculated dump sites, something far more sinister begins to take shape. In this analysis, we'll look past official statements and examine the evidence, the psychology of such offenders, and what a behavioral profile might look like. This case remains open. No single killer has been proven, but the data refuses to stay silent. The pattern intensified in the early 2000s on Chicago's south and west sides in neighborhoods including Inglewood and Garfield Park, areas already struggling with poverty, violence, and neglect. Many of the victims were marginalized women facing poverty, addiction, or engaging in sex work just to survive another day. These factors made them tragically vulnerable, and because their lives were already on the fringes, their disappearances and deaths were far less likely to generate widespread media attention or urgent police resources. Here are the human stories behind the statistics. Gwendolyn Williams, found strangled in 2002, was reportedly behind a dollar store. Kelly Seraph, discovered in an abandoned building in 2006. Winifred Shines in 2001. Genevieve Mellis was found outdoors and partially clothed in 2008. Charlene Miller and Latonia Banks in 2009. LaFauna Wilson in 2010. And Quanda Kreider shortly after. These were mothers, daughters, and sisters, real women with families who still mourned them. The victims were overwhelmingly women, with roughly 75% black, ranging in age from 18 to 58. Many were last seen in familiar neighborhoods, perhaps walking home or meeting someone they thought they could trust. MAP's analysis of unsolved strangulation cases highlighted a cluster that stood out statistically from the background noise of urban crime. Any single case could appear as yet another isolated act of violence in a high crime zone. The tight concentration in location, victim type, and method raised serious questions about the possible serial offender or offenders. This is textbook behavior for predators who deliberately choose the vulnerable, the invisible individuals whose disappearances draw less immediate scrutiny from society and law enforcement. It's not random, it's strategic, and it forces us to ask, how many more voices were silenced before anyone connected the dots? In behavioral analysis, we examine the modus operandi and signature behaviors, those consistent actions that may reveal an offender's deeper psychological needs and fantasies. Across many of these cases, the cause of death was strangulation, a deeply hands-on, intimate, and terrifying personal method that requires sustained physical control over the victim. Unlike a quick gunshot, This forces the killer to feel every moment of the struggle, to watch the life drain away. Victims were often found partially or fully clothed with some evidence of sexual assault or binding. In certain instances, plastic bags or similar items were used. Bodies were frequently dumped in secluded, neglected spots, like alleys or vacant buildings, overgrown lawns, or trash receptacles. They suggest careful planning and intimate familiarity of the area. Knowledge of blind spots where remains might go undiscovered for days or even weeks. Not every case shared every single detail, but the reoccurring elements, the intimate killing method, dehumanizing disposal, and strategic local dump sites create a chillingly consistent picture. This strongly points to organized behavior rather than purely impulsive or chaotic violence. As MAP founder Thomas Hargrove noted, it reflects deep street knowledge of the environment. The killer wasn't just lucky. He knew exactly where to hunt and where to hide his work. In the years 2018 and 2019, amid growing pressure from grieving families, community activists, and media coverage, the Chicago Police Department, working with the FBI, formed a task force to review the 51 cases. Chief of Detectives Brendan Deenan stated that investigators found no probable forensic links connecting them. He described MAP's work as simply placing dots on a map, emphasizing that real police work requires concrete evidence like shared DNA, not statistical patterns alone. CPD noted that similarities could simply reflect the kinds of crime trends common in those challenged neighborhoods. Of the core unsolved cases, DNA was recovered in only about 18, yielding roughly 21 different male profiles, with no matches linking multiple victims. But one case from the broader review, the 2017 murder of Diamond Turner, was dumped in a garbage can. It was solved. Arthur Hillard, a man that she knew, was found guilty in December 2025 of her murder. It was not forensically tied to the others, but MAP's Thomas Hargrove pushed back hard. He argued that the odds of so many similar unsolved strangulations occurring in such a concentrated area without a serial element were extremely low. He pointed to the algorithm successes in other cities and accused authorities of wearing blinders. Families expressed deep outrage and disbelief, feeling their loved ones had been dismissed yet again. And this tension persists even to this day. The Chicago police are correct that without linking forensics or a confession, a single perpetrator cannot be proven in court. But behavioral analysis and data experts can still identify patterns that strongly suggest one or more organized offenders at work here. When the numbers and the signatures line up this tightly, ignoring the possibility comes at a cost. These are my speculations. It's not a formal evaluation. As a licensed professional counselor, not a forensic psychologist conducting an official assessment, the following section offers general behavioral observations drawn from publicly available information and established principles in forensic psychology. It's for educational and discussion purposes only and does not constitute a clinical diagnosis, a forensic profile, or expert opinion admissible in any legal context. When forensic links are absent, forensic psychology turns to behavioral evidence to build possible profiles. The Chicago cluster, its prolonged span across nearly 2 decades, the deliberate victim selection, and the intimate violence in the calculated disposal, it all suggests traits highly consistent with severe psychopathy combined with an organized offender mindset. Psychopath here is a precise clinical term. It's not a synonym for insane or out of control. Psychopaths are typically rational, fully aware of right and wrong, but profoundly lacking in empathy or remorse. The Hare Psychopathy Checklist, revised, assesses key traits including superficial charm, grandiosity, pathological lying, manipulation, callousness, and an antisocial lifestyle. We can't score an unknown subject, of course, but the documented actions, long-term patient predation on vulnerable victims, the use of strangulation for total domination, and the contemptuous disposal of the bodies, all align closely with a high psychopathy and emotional detachment. The 17-plus year timeline with possible lulls, such as in the mid-2010s, can indicate a mix of opportunism and patience, or even periods of incarceration for unrelated crimes that temporarily interrupted the pattern. This fits the classic organized killer profile, someone capable of planned luring, a consistent killing method, and a systematic use of familiar territory to reduce risk and avoid detection. Such an individual would likely blend seamlessly into everyday life, charming or entirely unremarkable to neighbors and coworkers, while at the same time hiding a profound inner void where empathy should be. To them, victims are not people with dreams and families and futures. They are objects to be used and discarded. Imagine the level of self-control required to maintain that mask for years while satisfying dark urges. It's one of the most chilling aspects of forensic psychology, the predator who looks just like everyone else. Understanding this level of cold, calculated predation requires examining real psychological patterns in depth. If you value thoughtful clinical style analysis of cases like this, and if this case is interesting to you and you want more videos like this one, you know what to do. The emerging profile, an organized, manipulative predator who targets marginalized women over many years, echoes several well-documented cases that should make us pause. Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, murdered dozens of sex workers and runaways near Seattle over 2 decades. He relied on strangulation, dumped bodies in clusters, and lived a seemingly normal life with a job and a family. His victims' marginalization meant their cases lingered unsolved for far too long. Strong parallels in victimology method and longevity. The Hillside Stranglers, Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Biano, terrorized Los Angeles in the late 1970s. They used strangulation to exert ultimate domination and derive sadistic pleasure from their victims' suffering. Bianchi displayed clear antisocial and psychopathic traits, even attempting to fake multiple personalities to evade justice. The underlying psychology of power, control, and deception overlaps significantly here. Closer to home, Darren Dion Van was arrested in 2014 in Gary, Indiana, just across the state line from Chicago, for strangling women and leaving their bodies in abandoned buildings, mirroring the Chicago M.O. He confessed to 7 murders and claimed additional victims in Illinois, including the Chicago area. While no forensic links to the 51 cases have been publicly confirmed, the geographic proximity, identical methods, and choice of dump sites make any potential connection impossible to dismiss lightly. Officially, no single serial killer has been confirmed in the Chicago cluster, yet the MAP's data, the persistent community concerns, and the behavioral patterns point to the disturbing possibility of one or more highly psychopathic organized offenders who exploited vulnerable women in overlooked neighborhoods for nearly 2 decades. The psychological fingerprint, consistent victim selection, intimate violence, and calculated disposal, they all suggest a predator or predators who operated with significant impunity. So we're left with the clinical profile of a man who, according to official record, doesn't even exist. For 17 years, someone stalked the south and west sides of Chicago. At least 51 women were strangled to death and their bodies discarded with contempt. The data suggests a serial killer. The community believe it was a serial killer, but the police say no. Our psychological analysis points to a highly psychopathic, organized, and sexually sadistic offender, a man who's likely charming on the surface, but an empathetic void underneath. A predator who uses his knowledge of the city's forgotten neighborhoods to hunt with near total impunity, choosing victims that society had already made invisible. The only trace he leaves is a consistent, terrifying pattern of death, And that pattern is a confession in and of itself. These cases remain unsolved. The families of Gwendolyn Williams, Kelly Shariff, Winfield Shines, LaFonda Wilson, and dozens of others are still waiting for answers. The official narrative is one of disconnected tragedies. But as we have seen here, the psychological fingerprint tells a very different story. It tells of a single, patient, and ruthless predator. The question isn't just who did this, but is he still out there? Families continue waiting for answers, carrying pain that never fully fades. The official view emphasizes separate incidents without proven links. The data and clinical lens tell us more unsettling story of a possible systemic predation hidden in plain sight. Was there a secret serial killer or killers in Chicago? And if so, is justice still possible? Similar patterns like this have appeared in other communities as well. For example, Jacksonville, Florida, a city with its own documented challenges, has been flagged by MAP for one of the largest unsolved murder clusters in the state, prompting questions about possible organized predation and persistently low clearance rates in overlooked areas. What do you think about this? Have you seen patterns like this in your own community? And that closes this clinical file. Until next time, good day and good night.